Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My surroundings today have slightly changed from my normal, and you might be hearing some extra background noise today as well, for which I apologize. But I'm coming at you today from my quarantine trailer in my parents' backyard in Canada. For various reasons relating to the current situation going on in the world, I made the decision to come to Canada for a prolonged period of time in order to be able to see my family, and as a result I'm having to quarantine in this trailer behind me for 2 weeks. But since I can't really go anywhere, I have lots of time to talk to you guys and make videos for you. I am very aware that I'm extremely lucky that I'm able to quarantine in a trailer with full water and electricity in my parents' backyard, as not everybody has that option. I'm able to travel to Canada because I am a Canadian citizen, and I'm also very lucky that this was made possible by the fact that since I'm currently working remotely from home, it doesn't really matter where that specific location is. So I am still working while I'm here, and I will also have to work remotely when I go back to the UK, because at this moment in time I will also have to quarantine when I return back to Edinburgh. I'd also like to say a really big thank you to everyone for the amazing reception my previous video got, which is linked down below, an interview with a fellow archaeologist. I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed that video. It was a real pleasure to be able to make it for you and to meet Jeanette herself. We're definitely going to be good friends, and I'm hoping to have her come back on the channel at a later date as well. I'm really hoping to do more videos like that about real archaeologists living and working in archaeology, and not just the ones that you see on TV. Speaking of TV, today's topic is one that I don't know if I'd necessarily say I've been putting it off, but it's one that I've been thinking about doing for a while, but is kind of one of those things that's like, do I really want to bother? Do I really want to start this conversation? Because it can be tiring to deal with sometimes. And as you will have seen from the title of this video, today's topic is about ancient alien astronaut conspiracy theories. My idea for this partially came from the fact that a couple weeks ago my partner and I had some friends over for dinner, one of which is an archaeologist, and we got on the topic, and it came out that this friend had never watched the program Ancient Aliens, which is aired on what's called the History Channel, but in my opinion should perhaps be renamed to the Historic Fiction Channel. And for fun, we decided that since it was on Netflix, we would watch an episode and just kind of rip it to shreds. To be honest, I hadn't really watched an episode of this before. I've always seen clips of it, and everybody's seen the meme of the guy with the hair and the aliens. Through watching this program, it got me thinking about this topic a bit more. I'm gonna approach this from a slightly different angle today, because I don't think that there's enough time on YouTube or my patience to go through every specific theory about ancient aliens in relation to archaeology and disprove them fact by fact, and it's just not worth it, because you're always going to have people saying, oh but this, oh but that. So I'm going to talk about it in a bit of a different way today. I'm not going to claim here that aliens in whatever shape or form don't exist. I think that's more of the realm of programs like SETI or actual scientists who specialize in studying outer space or the potential for advanced civilizations out in space. But it really saddens and irritates me when people like to claim that aliens are inherently responsible for the success of human civilization and the evolution of us and our technology into modern day. One of the reasons this annoys me, and I'm sure many other archaeologists, is because these theories will inherently imply a lot of things that aren't true about us, like the fact that we are all liars and or concealing the real truth from the general public at the directive of someone or the collective good or whatever, which I can tell you is definitely 100% not true. I've never received any kind of secret directive to this effect to conceal something I've discovered and its true origins from people, and neither has any other archaeologist I've ever met. I would also like to point out that to collectively get all of the archaeologists of the world to agree to hide this thing from anyone else is a monumental task and would be like trying to herd cats. It's just really not possible. I think one of the reasons that people see this idea of us being very cagey about whatever or concealing the truth. This idea comes from kind of the fact that archaeology does have quite a secretive past in many ways. In case you didn't know, we actually have a history through espionage because archaeologists were used as spies in several major conflicts. T.E. Lawrence and Gertrude Bell will be linked in the description box below, were archaeologists who were used by the British Foreign Office as spies during World War I. And even today, when you sometimes see things about archaeology in the news, there can be sometimes stories related to the fact that we're being quote-unquote secretive about what's going on our dig. For example, there's the fact that it's the law in England that if you are excavating human remains, you actually have to prevent those remains from being seen by the public. So there will be fences or walls being put up around our digs, which will naturally arouse the curiosity of the public and the media. However, you will probably find that if you approach an archaeologist on a dig or they're being interviewed for the media, they're probably not going to be really forthcoming in telling you what they're talking about unless it's an approved media visit for a couple different reasons. One of them will be that they are trying to protect the site that they are working on from looters, because there are always opportunists. People associate archaeology with gold and riches, and if you advertise that there is a dig going on, even if you say there's not gold on it, there are always going to be people that don't believe you, and we can't afford to have 24-hour security on every site we work on, so you will inevitably have people going to take a look for themselves and messing up your work or what you're doing, which nobody ever wants to happen. Another reason why we might not be super forthcoming during a dig is because we're maybe not that sure about what's going on and we're still figuring it out. We don't want to spitball to someone about what we think might be going on and then that someone to go away and talk about it on social media or write an article about it, and it turns out that everything that's being said is either completely wrong or misinterpreted. We are trying to have a bit more control of the narrative. A good example of this was something that actually happened in Edinburgh about a month ago, where they currently have an archaeological site in the middle of Edinburgh. It is not hidden away anywhere. It's very visible to the public. And someone who was walking by on a pub crawl saw an archaeologist who was working with human remains, because they don't have to conceal them in Scotland like they do in England, took a picture of this person making a face while they were working, and then posted it on social media on Instagram, and it went pretty viral for Edinburgh. There was a news story written about it. There were people commenting it all over the place. It was all over Facebook. The headline was like, you know, workers grossed out by what they are doing. And as it turns out, that was not the case at all. This person in the photo was making a face because somebody was treating them like a zoo animal while they were at their job, taking a photo of them without their permission while they were working. This person was in no way disturbed or disgusted by what they were doing. And eventually everything got taken down and everything got cleared up. There are signs now at the dig saying, please don't take photos of us without our permission, etc. But that's a really good example of how people view things and how they actually are, and why archaeologists can be maybe a little bit skittish when it comes to dealing with these kinds of situations where you have people asking questions. When we are talking to you, the public, we want to be sure that what we are saying is correct. And while sometimes we have a pretty good idea of going on, other times we don't. And by the time that we do have a good idea of what's going on, we're probably off-site back at the lab, and your interest in what we're saying has probably waned. A lot of archaeological discoveries, especially in the UK, are made publicly available after all the work on them has been done, but they're not exactly advertised very well in terms of being accessible for people who aren't archaeologists or academics to see, or understandable for those people as well. So right now there's actually a really big movement in archaeology in general to try and involve communities more in what we're doing. So that means things like hosting open days, doing talks or lecture series after a dig about what actually happened on it and what we found, publishing the big official monograph that's the big textbook about the site, but then also breaking everything down and making it something that's a bit more easily digestible for the average person to read in a popular publication. So we're making small steps, but it's still a lot of work to try and dismantle this idea that we're quite cagey or secretive about what we're doing. We're really not. We want people to know about archaeology, because if you don't know about archaeology, then what's the point of us doing it? Ancient alien theories also imply that all the archaeological work that has been done about the origins of civilizations and humanities, etc., is ultimately wrong, or the archaeologists studying it are ignoring a pretty significant piece of the puzzle willingly, which is just frankly really insulting. Think about it in relation to yourself. If you're at work, you've been working at a job your whole lifetime, nobody's going to like someone coming in and saying, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're actually ignoring this part of the puzzle. But that person that's telling you that hasn't spent their life doing your job. Like, nobody is going to like that. People believing in ancient alien theories is something that makes me sad in a way as well, because essentially it means that you don't believe in or aren't proud of our own ingenuity and achievements as a collective human race. This partly comes from the fact that in modern day we are incredibly biased and have a very high opinion of ourselves. We tend to look at people in the past and scoff at them and say, ugh, how could they not believe that the earth was round? So stupid. But we don't realize the bias of that and you know, the benefit of the fact that we haven't had to investigate that for ourselves. We were actually just, somebody found out for us and we've just learned it. We tend to think that because an ancient Egyptian person from the past wouldn't know how to drive a car or use a cell phone or worships anthropomorphic gods, that means that they are stupid and we are looking at them. But one of the best quotes I ever heard from a professor when I was studying was that just because they're ancient doesn't mean they're stupid. And that's really true. There are a lot of things in the past that people would have done as naturally as you and I pick up our phones, turn it on, and use Google, that we have no knowledge or experience of today. Just like you wouldn't be able to take an ancient Egyptian, put him in modern day, and put him in a car, or give him a cell phone and expect him to know how to use it. Similarly, if we went back in time, I highly doubt that many of us, even if we were able to survive, would have the kind of skills and know-how that we would need to be able to thrive and flourish. Think about a lot of the skills and the things that we rely on machines and modern technology to do for us today. We wouldn't know how to do those things without that technology. Something like maths or engineering, try and figure out everything that you need to know about making a safe building without the benefits of CAD or even a basic calculator. All of the achievements of the past that people have made are exactly how we've ended up today. Just because things have maybe accelerated in the past couple hundred years because of the discoveries made during the Industrial Revolution doesn't mean that we didn't need the building blocks of everything previously to get us there. One of the things that I noticed when I was watching Ancient Aliens as well was that the way that they typically cut together and produce the show, they will hypothesize or make a statement that is true or plausible, but then they will insert a hypothesis about ancient aliens and end on a question. But they never actually answer the question. They don't really seem to be interested in answering their own questions with actual evidence or proof from real life, and not just one instance of evidence, but multiple instances of evidence, because that's how science works. The show will put forward a statement of something to the tune of, you know, Cyclopean architecture in Mycenae in Greece, or the pyramids. They are monumental feats of architecture that are impressive still to this day. We look at them and we go, wow, how could we have built that? And then they say, well, we couldn't have built that, it must have been the aliens. Which, when you break it down to that level, is rude. Not to mention the fact that there is so much evidence that we built all of these buildings or pieces of architecture. The pyramids are an excellent example. We have the villages where the workers who were building them lived. We have texts talking about how they were built. We know that the ancient Egyptians were incredibly intelligent. They figured out the basics of geometry and math, and the methods that they were using, while simple, were very effective. For example, how could they have cut those blocks? Wood and water. Somewhere like Egypt is very dry, and wood is something that shrinks when it's very dry. So what they would do is they would chip away and do the basic outline of the stone that they needed, and they would make cracks. They would insert wooden pegs that were dried, and then they would pour water on it, and the water, in making the wood expand, would break away all of the stone. And then from there, all you really need to do is a lot of fine tuning. This is something that I've even seen in real life. When I was in Jordan, we used hoes and pickaxes to break up the earth so that we could take it away while excavating. And every night we would have to put the heads of the hoes and the pickaxes in a bucket with some water in it, because otherwise the wood would dry out and shrink, and then your big metal pickaxe head would be sliding up and down the shaft of the pickaxe, which is a bit of a dangerous health and safety situation and ruins the usability of that tool. So to answer a lot of these questions that these theorists are posing in these kinds of programs, because it's not just ancient aliens, I would like to ask some questions back about your theory. So if aliens came and gave us the pyramids, or they built the Great Palace at Mycenae, why did they just give us buildings? Why didn't they give us stuff like modern medicine so that we could live longer? What about science or technology? Why didn't they just hand everyone a cell phone? If at that point in our history we were so inferior that we needed help from aliens to build all of these things, why didn't they stick around? Alternately, why didn't they look at us as some kind of bug and say, hey, we don't need them, but Earth is full of a lot of really abundant resources. Why don't we just kill them off and take advantage of the Earth for ourselves? Why didn't they have this malicious intent? Because I think I can say with a lot of confidence that if the shoe was on the other foot and we were the ones in the position of power, we probably would have done things that way. If they were going to give us all this technology and everything, why didn't they just bring us up to their level? Why didn't we get things like space travel, cell phones, etc. in the last century? Why didn't we get it a couple thousand years ago when we got the pyramid? Why is it that all we got were some fancy stone monuments? If said things are supposed to be time and space traveling machines or great weapons, etc., why isn't there a manual somewhere carved into the stone of said time machine? Because I would think that in a society advanced enough to be able to build these machines would also be advanced enough to know that you can't exactly rely on word of mouth to accurately relay instructions for the rest of time on how to operate such a large and delicate piece of machinery. That's just a couple of the questions that I have for the people who are coming up with these theories about why ancient aliens are somehow responsible for building the pyramids, or why we have pyramids in both Egypt and Mesoamerica, which is a completely separate topic that I would be happy to talk about if you guys are interested in hearing about it. But I think I'm going to end today, because I'm just working myself up in too much of a froth, by saying that no, ancient aliens did not help us in our past. We didn't have any help from an advanced extraplanetary civilization to help us get to where we are today. We did that ourselves with our own blood, sweat, and tears. Countless generations of your ancestors toiled, suffered, invented, and built us to where we are today. And really, we should be proud of how far we've come. And we really shouldn't be giving credit for that to anybody but ourselves. This is a topic, obviously, that archaeologists feel very passionately about. So it's not one that we tend to talk about a lot, just simply because most of the time we don't even want to entertain the possibility, because it is in a lot of ways offensive to us and what we do. Per usual, I hope this has been helpful and useful. Feel free to comment down below and ask me any further questions, or let me know if there's maybe any particular ancient alien theories you'd like me to discuss, because I would be happy to try and take those on. My social media is below if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or Twitter. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more from me, please check out the rest of my channel and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye!